welcome to the New Conversation. I'm Dwight McBride, president of the New School, and I am thrilled to be here launching this new series. At the New School, we believe in the power of thoughtful, critical dialogue to broaden our perspective, to shape our thinking, and to lift our spirits. So I hope that you'll come along this journey with me in these short, informal conversations where I invite scholars, artists, activists, and a wide range of notable individuals to share their work, their experience, and their views on a host of issues. It is in that spirit that I'd like to introduce my first guest. Carrie Mae Weems is a gifted, powerful artist whose work breaks boundaries across mediums and subjects. She has created masterpieces in every form, from photography to performance art, exploring issues of race, gender, and class. Her work has been shown in museums and galleries across the world, and she's the first Black woman to receive a solo show at the Guggenheim, and also she received a MacArthur Foundation Genius Grant in 2013. Carrie, thank you so much for being here with me today. I cannot tell you how much I've been looking forward to this.
It's great to see you.
It's fabulous to see you. I know that our listeners are going to have so many things they want to hear about, and there are a lot to cover in a short period of time today. So I just want to start by asking you, and we've talked about this before in another setting, but how you knew or decided that you were going to be an artist.
Oh my goodness. I think I knew very early on. I knew very early in my life. I was always, I was an existentialist from the beginning, and I always loved drawing and painting and dance and theater, and there was something about this world that I didn't have an A around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no A, but I knew that there was something that dealt with the creative energies and forces that profoundly interested me, even as a young child, as early as 7, 8 years old. My mother, who was a maid, I had all these wonderful smocks, and I would take her smock, and I'd go up to our attics, where I had like a little easel and little paints from the 88-cent store, and there was a view from my window, and I would pretend as though I were in Paris, living in Paris, and I'd sit there at 10, 12 years old, painting my little canvas, right? I was just gone. And
I do.
Yeah. I just knew that there was something else there for me, and I didn't know how to name it. But importantly, several other people around me, teachers rather, around me sort of recognized something and reached out to me. One of them got me involved in theater. The other one got me more involved in the arts, like really helping me to navigate this thing. And the importance of teachers has not been lost on me.
Absolutely. I similar stories around that front as well. I wonder, this most interesting work that you've been up to during this pandemic, this terrible pandemic we've been living through, but it inspired you to create the Resist COVID Take 6 project.
Yes.
And we've been, of course, privileged at the New School to collaborate with you and your team in this work, this public art work. Tell me a little bit about why it felt so important for you in this moment to make this public art project that speaks to this crisis.
Yes. Well, it really started so serendipitous. I was on the phone with my closest friend. We were talking about the impact of COVID-19, and I saw these staggering numbers, right? That that at that moment in March, at the very beginning of the lockdown, right, within weeks, we knew that Black and brown people had been seriously impacted and were the ones who had actually died the most, right? So, for instance, in New York, when you arrived, the day you arrived, actually, President McBride, the day
Yeah.
of the lockdown, right? 23% of the deaths were amongst Black people. In Michigan, 41%. In Illinois, 58%. In Louisiana, 70%. In Chicago, 72%. In Wisconsin, 73%. In Georgia, 80%. And the numbers were actually worse amongst Latino Americans and catastrophic amongst Native Americans. And so, so the reality of those numbers just shook me. And I thought, oh my God, I have to respond to this.
Mhm.
Somehow I have to use my platform and use this time to respond to this. And so my very good friend Pierre Leving, who's a lawyer, stayed up all night writing a proposal, drafting a proposal,
Wow.
and I started immediately designing images and text pieces that I thought would be really essential for this discussion and this debate. Not only were we in the midst of a pandemic, but we were also being led by a president who refused to offer a systematic approach to safety in relationship to the pandemic. And I'm wondering if, in part, some of that, as crazy as it might be, has to do with the fact that the vast majority of people dying from COVID have been people of color. And that I wonder if the reactions in some way would have been actually different if there had been another understanding that COVID was actually having a devastating effect across all classes, across all ethnic groups, etc., and that it needed to have systematic leadership. His failure, I think, has been extraordinary. And so I needed to, so I was grappling with that idea as well. So how to build an image and text piece that could be artist-driven public art campaign was sort of essential. And of course, our conversation that emerged out of that, working with your campus, with your team, in order to spread the word, in order to maintain levels of safety and hopefully save lives. Well, what an extraordinary opportunity.
Also, the tie-in to have that work come from and be in collaboration with an artist such as yourself, with such vision behind this work, that just felt a real natural fit for us at the New School too. A real natural fit with our values, with who we are. So I was extraordinarily excited about that partnership. One of the things about this campaign that I found so fascinating in this exhibit is how much joy you actually can see in the photos. What did that choice mean to you as you were looking at those photos and bringing them to those texts?
Mm-hmm.
What was that choice about?
Well, for instance, the thing that's interesting is, of course, we're always negotiating the changing same, as Amiri Baraka would say, right? One step forward, two steps back. We're just in this. We're in the cha-cha. So and so I made these images. For instance, "Don't worry, we will hold hands again,"
Mm-hmm.
which the response has been amazing to this image. Or my point is that yes, all life matters, but we have to understand that Black, Latino, and Native Americans are being profoundly impacted. Those images actually came from another body of work where I invited a group of people to come to the Museum of Modern Art and to restage a series of actions that had happened in the garden in the 60s, but there were no Black people, of course, essentially present. And so I
Wow.
decided that I would do this reenactment of a whole series of events, but I would have a whole bunch of people of color there, and sort of mix up the playing field.
Yeah.
And so, We'll Hold Hands Again was literally made out of putting all these people together that have historically not come together, right?
Right.
Within these sort of cultural spaces. And, within that frame is that Fred Wilson, for instance, and Whitfield Lavelle, and the great Helmut Blewett, like extraordinary artists of our time are also, depicted in the images themselves. So it was
Wow.
actually a photograph really made about the importance of proximity, of understanding one another, of holding on to one another, right? So the image had been made, 5 years ago. And now I had like the perfect situation to use in relationship to another kind of crisis, but dealing with the same material in a lot of ways, right? The sort of issues of where we are placed and how race is playing out during this pandemic is absolutely critical for us to understand and for the general public to understand and to know and to accept. Right? That if we're looking at science and we're looking at the facts and we're looking at the statistics, right? The reality points to what is happening in this country. And it's not connected, of course, to the death of George Floyd.
Right.
So all of this material, I think, is really sort of linked together. They're tied together. They're dots that lead from one thing to the next. And the same thing is true for several other photographs that were made. And then finally, Life is Beautiful, which I just love.
I
Turns
love that.
out this is
Yeah.
my mother. It's a photograph of my mother.
Oh, wow.
It's a photograph of my mother who worked in a factory. And I went to visit her at work, and that was her response to my walking into her workplace and surprising her. Right? It's just wonderful. It's a wonderful photograph. And so I thought that, there was this idea that, certain kinds of messaging, yes, it's serious. Yes, this virus, it's serious. It has, taken almost 300,000 lives in this country alone, with the numbers growing every day. And again, with Black and brown people still being the most impacted by it all, though we are all impacted by the force of nature in this way.
Oh.
But I thought that as much as we have to deal with the pain of loss, the possibility of loss, that if we do the right thing, if we love life, if we want to be on the other side of this nightmare, if
Yes.
we wash up, mask up, and back up, then
Yes.
we survive. We can survive, and we can hold on to the things that are beautiful and promising about the lives that we have.
Absolutely. While at the same time devastating that's necessary still today, to the point you were making, there is something also that buoys the spirit about the fact that that is happening. Young people, especially in this country, I think are really leading a kind of rethinking and reimagining of what they expect from their citizenship in this country, their membership. And I think that's so important.
I started sort of noticing this a few months ago, that almost every cover of every magazine has a Black woman on the cover,
Wow.
has a person of color on the cover.
Right.
Now, several years ago, that was not true, right? That I could go for a very long time without seeing a woman of color on the cover of Vogue or Town and Country, or all of these ways in which we are noticing and seeing that there's a shift that's happening in the country. That the visuality is there, and now the structures have to change, right? The structures of bringing in a diverse group of people.
I wonder if you could speak a little bit about your intentionality in that role as mentor.
Mm.
with other artists, with younger artists, but just more specifically, what it's brought to you and your work as well.
My sense is that is that is that I want to be of service. That I want to be of service. That I want to offer you everything that has been offered to me and a whole lot more. Right? Because in a lot of ways, early teachers were very important, but of course, I've had to do an awful lot on my own. I've had to find my way on my own. I am a Black woman, and
Yes.
being a Black woman has been a tough row to hoe in America. It is not. It has not been easy. Right? It has not been easy. So I really understand that. I understand also the importance of work and of hard work and a commitment to work. And I think probably the thing that I'm best at in working with young people and working with people that I care about is really helping them to tease out the thing that they are indeed committed to, right? Because once you can figure out actually what you're committed to, what you really care about in terms of your work and in terms of your life, there are a lot of other things that are simply resolved as a result of making that one decision, right? If you can figure out what you are committed to and what you care about, you can latch on to that rope and it will carry you out through the rest of your life, right? Because the only thing then that changes are simply the sort of the meter and the rhythm and the time and when and where you enter at any other moment. How do you address the condition and the situation now, right? So I've been historically interested in questions of power and how power corrupts, what it looks like and how it's defined, and what it means for me and what it means for the communities that I stand with and represent. So that is something that I care about, and I'm always unpacking it in one way or another. And it's that gift that I think that I bring to students.
Certainly, as someone who has spent much of your life training students as well, teaching in universities, as you think about that and the role of someone like me leading a university in this moment, I mean, what would be the kinds of questions that would be top of mind that you think we should be seriously talking about or thinking about in this moment?
In the last 6 months, every day, there's a note on my desk from cultural institutions and universities saying, um, any ideas?
Right,
You
right.
have any ideas? Are there any people that, are there any brown people that maybe you might want to turn us on to, right?
I get those notes too. I hear you. Yeah, yeah.
Right? That's the reality. That's where it is. It all is, and it's really sort of amazing. And so, I think we're all in this together, and maybe for the first time, um, a lot more people really understand that than they knew just 6 months ago or
Yeah.
9 months ago. That we are really in this together, and that and that and that the, and that the arc of history is long,
Yeah.
and that it does bend towards justice. It does bend towards justice, even with all the stops and the starts. It
Right.
bends towards justice, and it's going to take an awful lot of work, an
Love it.
awful
Yeah.
lot of work. But I think that this is it, and I think of it as being an extraordinary moment. Again, I think of it as being an amazing opportunity without being an opportunist.
Yeah.
That
Right.
it's there, and in my sense is that I actually want to develop a project. I think it's called Shake the Tree. I think of it as being now a time of gathering
Yeah.
and creating space for a certain kind of gathering of the minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would rather see that than new courses or new this or new, right? I would rather simply see a series of kind of gatherings of of dynamic people in a number of different ways across the country around this notion of the shaking of the tree and the gathering of the fruit.
Can't wait to hear more about that as well. Carrie, I just want to go back to something you were talking about earlier, and that is that this idea of being in community, the importance of community. And you've said a lot about this in public ways and in other public spaces. And you've said before that Black people and artists, they work from a perspective of we, not of I.
Yes.
And I just, if you could say a little bit about how your own work has been affected by that fundamental understanding of the role of community, both for Black people, but also for artists.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also for people in general. I mean, of course, I'm constantly aware of my position as a Black woman, but I'm also aware of my position as an artist, and I'm aware of my position as human.
Yeah.
I do think that, you know, one of the great advantages to being Black in America, as opposed to maybe being Black in Senegal, is that our historical circumstances led us to we.
Yes.
Right? The nature of our circumstance is embedded in the plural. It's not really embedded in the individual. And so, and through that, you have this extraordinary capacity for empathy, an extraordinary capacity for compassion, and an extraordinary capacity for grace. And that is embodied in some of our greatest traditions, whether we're talking about jazz, one of the most democratic forms of music, you know, to arrive out of the African American experience, or blues, or the formation of cake dance, and right, and prayer and worship. Is all based in this notion of we. So when I'm talking to like young subjects, it's like you already have your subjects. You know, you have your stuff. You have this incredible minefield in order to mine a well from which you can go to, and you can go deep, right? You know, it is powerful and magical. And while there has been pain and hurt and suffering throughout our time on living in this living under our condition, it has also been so incredibly illuminating. And so we have great insight, we have great compassion, we have great ability, and it never ceases to amaze me how Black people make it up through and around the subject and the discourses in which they are engaged. It really does just blow my mind. Even when we have differences, we are still dealing very much with the notion of we. Where can we go from here? And so I think one of the great things that we now offer is that we offer another understanding and another insight into what the future can be, because we have a deep understanding of what the past has been.
Carrie, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time today to be here and to have this both soulful and candidly inspiring conversation. I know that the folks who'll have a chance to witness this will be equally buoyed as I am today. So thank you for making time. Thank you for the collaboration with us here at the New School. Thank you for all the great and important work that you're doing and for helping to shape the next generation of young artists. We're all so grateful and richer to have you in our lives.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure. And just wishing you all the best. Be well, and thank you so much for the invitation to join
Thank you, my dear.